Now, let's quickly cover some of the real basic things. Now, some of you may have had this before, but remember there are 4 basic shapes that the entire world is made up from, okay? We're going to cover those quickly, and it's important to have these in your mind so you can see them when you're drawing. The first basic shape we have is called and I always test my class, no, it's not a circle, it's called a sphere, S-P-H-E-R-E. Now a sphere, unlike a circle, can be three-dimensional. A circle can't always be three-dimensional. So we have to remember that you can take a piece of charcoal or your paint, whatever it is, say your sunlight's coming in from this direction, from the right, and if I shade this side, all of a sudden this sort of circle-looking object now becomes very three-dimensional. Now the reason this is an important step in understanding basic drawing is because most of us have still struggled with making things look round because we don't get the value system right, but now all of a sudden you took that outline of a circle, put a little shading in there, and you have 3 values. You have the dark, the middle value, and then the light value. Okay, so if you want to label those dark, medium, or middle, and then light, that's what makes an object look round. Okay, it's very important, folks, that you understand the basics, all right, and then it makes your drawing a lot more effective. Now the second basic shape in drawing is what we call, let's see if you can figure this one out. It starts out looking like a what? Yeah, a triangle. Put a little rounded base to it, and this is called the cone. Now in a little bit when we start getting into some actual objects and drawing things, you're going to see how every one of these 4 shapes, everything in the world is made up from them, in some form of it. Now, same thing here. If we shade this left side of this with the charcoal, of course you could be using anything to shade with, your pencil or paint, whatever, you still have 3 values. At least 3. Now you can have more than that, but you have to have at least 3 to make something look round. And of course I'm just using my finger to blend with here just as a quick way. But you see, by softly blending around, I create the 3-dimensional form. Looks like I can see around this object, okay? So here again we have the dark side, the middle value, and then the light value. So again, to make this look round, you have those 3 values. Now I might mention also that when you put a shadow, now we're not going to cover shadows extensively or much at all, but I just want to remind you that all these things, this is called a form shadow, but the shadow that you would put on the ground is called the cast shadow. And this particular thing would be something that you would all learn in time, but you see your shadows will come out and they'll play a very important role in your understanding basic drawing. But it's only important right now so that you'll see how it makes it look flat. Okay, see, you want to make sure the shadow is sort of flat. This is called the cast shadow. This is called the form shadow. So those are the two types of shadows there are to create form and in your paintings. All right, now we've looked at those 2 basic shapes. There's 2 more basic shapes that make up things in the world. Let's see if you can figure out what this one is. No, this is not a tin can. This is what we call a cylinder, okay? And I'm not here to be an English teacher, so this is the cylinder. And it's the same application applies here. This could just be like the trunk of a tree, sections of a body like an arm or a leg or a neck. If you look at all of the things in life that have similar shapes, when I get done here, you're going to be amazed how every single one of these shapes apply to every object in the world. Now, just like these other 2, we're going to have 3 values to make it look 3-dimensional. And so we say we do this side now. This is the dark value. As we come across, lighten the pressure, and then I just take my finger to kind of finish out. Sometimes you don't even need to have the other line there because your eye sort of finishes out the painting or the sketch. I just take my finger. Of course, you may be using paint to blend with or whatever, but I would get these 4 shapes down and really understand them. But see, here again we have the dark, the middle, and the light. 3 values. Now, what about the inside here? Now, we have a basic oval here. Now, we're going to understand some of these things, but this is something that if you want it to look hollow, say maybe this is a hollow stump on an old log or something, you want to see inside it, or some other object, like the top of a coffee cup, which we're going to draw here in a minute, and some other things like that. Endless. Say your light's coming in this direction. Well, the inside of your oval will be dark on this side, and as you come across to create form and roundness, you lighten your pressure, come right on across, and take your finger and kind of blend it, or whatever you're using right there. And so because, see, it's just a little opposite what normally you do because it's hollow. The sun is being blocked by this edge of the object, so this is what makes the can or whatever it is look hollow. So, but you have the same thing here. You have a dark shadow, middle, and then light. So you have 3 values that are just opposite each other. That's the shape number 3 in our basic drawing understanding. Now the next one is one that really applies more than you realize. It's a little geometrical in the sense that it is a fairly square shape, and there's two forms of this shape. You have one that we call the cube. Now all of you are used to this, but very lightly. So you would make a line, a cube, and then you overlap the next one, and then you just connect the corners, see, like this. Then you can go ahead and fill in the basic shape. Erase the inner part. And now there's your cube. Now this cube, of course, can be in all angles and shapes and sizes. So this is the cube. Now a cube, keep in mind, is perfect on all sides. It's got all sides are the same. The stretched out version of the cube would be called the rectangle. You know, there's no sense in us spending a lot of time in there, but a rectangle would be a longer version of the cube. A rectangle can be any shape, okay? So I'll just do you a small little sample of a rectangle. See, a rectangle is different than a cube because it can be any length or size that you want it to be. A cube it can be bigger, but it's always going to be equal on all sides. Now, how about shading something like this? Well, it only applies like this. Say you have the light coming here. Obviously, there's no sun hitting this side, so this is the dark side. Now, this applies like if you're doing a building or any square objects, so you'll see how this would work, or anything that's got this kind of a look to it. Okay? Now, underneath here would be the middle value, and on the front of it would be the lighter value. So the reality here is you have definite edges that block the light from hitting each side, as opposed to here where the sun kind of circulates gradually around. Here it's definite edges, dark, middle, light, no blending, okay? Same thing with this. If you have the cube up here, the light part would be on the top. This would be the darkest value because the sun is not able to hit this. Your middle value would be here on the side because there would be a little light hitting it, but the top would be the lightest, so you have 3 values, okay? That's how you would make your object really have 3-dimensional form outside of just the actual sketch. So see, those are the 3 or 4 basic and sort of an A and B on the cube and the rectangle. So there's really 5 basic shapes altogether. That's the key, and the very first thing, if you went to any art school in the world and you've never had a drawing lesson in your life, this is the very first thing they're going to teach you, okay? It's a wonderful, wonderful illustration of what's going on in the art world in terms of drawing.